This is where we are right now. So if you've been watching the time lapse, you'll notice that there's been a bit of a jump. And the reason I did that is just simply because I was doing the same thing over and over again. I didn't want to bore you with that, for one. Two, I was just getting a lot of video files of me, doing some very repetitive stuff. I figured you guys kind of got the idea by that point. So I figured I'd just go on and just get it done off camera. I'm just, like I said, I'm just getting a lot of files and using up a lot of gigs of space. And there's really nothing more that you could have learned from what I was doing, so there's really no need for me to just keep doing it over and over again. So if you were watching the time lapse, what you'd notice was that for some parts I'd make completely new geometry, and then other parts I would just take the existing geometry, I think like this piece right here, and sort of just try to clean up some of the triangles, and some of them got left in there just because it was too much of a hassle. You kind of have to do your own sort of cost benefit analysis of taking the time to remove every single triangle versus leaving some of them in there, or just using the component as is, all triangulated. Again, you want to spend as little time as possible, because if you start to let it get to the point where you're spending hours and hours and hours working on something that, again, is not going to be really that important, then that's probably a waste of time. So I just had to figure this out as I went. So some parts were just made from scratch, like these cylinders that I made here for the suspension were just new cylinders made, but then these sections here where it connects, these were the components that were originally there. Then I just sort of went through and removed triangles where I could. The springs are ones that I just redid. I didn't use the ones that were there. This guy here I remodeled, and honestly this is probably way more geometry than I would want, but it is what it is. There's 4 of these, one at each wheel. There's the other 2 right there. And this one here I modeled over again. So you just have to figure out how you're going to do it as you go. Another thing that you might have noticed is that I started to do UVs, so you can see some of these are UVs. These springs here are UV'd, and then I stopped doing it as I went. The reason that I did stop was just in an effort to save time, and just knowing that it's very likely that most of this stuff is being under the train. It's going to be even in shadow and just hidden, to the point where I might not need to do really complicated textures anyway. So taking the time to UV all these pieces would just burn a lot of time that may not be worth it in the end. So we'll see as I get to laying out the set and getting my cameras in there, seeing where everything's going to be shown, and see if I need to do any serious UVing, or if I could just throw a basic, worn metal type shader, dirty metal shader in there and call it done. If you're making a film like this and you're doing it by yourself, you have to decide where you're going to spend the time and where you don't want to spend the time. Okay. And that applies to everything: modeling, animation, texturing, etc. Figure out where it's going to be needed and where it's not going to be needed, and then do it where it's going to be needed, and avoid the areas where it's not. So I'm probably going to be able to just get away with putting on like a dark metal shader that's worn or whatever, and that might be good enough. So this is where we are. You'll see that I put these little drum things that I'd modeled on my earlier wheels, just because it was looking kind of bare down the center, so I wanted to add a little something there. So I did that, Final poly count, as you can see, is about 290,000. So a little under 300,000, which means we've taken it from 1.5 million polygons to almost 300,000. So we've sort of gone down a fifth. We're down to a fifth of the number of polygons, and we have pretty much the exact same amount of detail. Again, this coming from a CAD file, the guy who modeled this was pretty serious about getting details, like, for example, inside of these little boxes here. Let me hide this. He had modeled the inside of these boxes with interior faces and things like that, so you can see that I went through and I deleted the interior faces just to save polygons there. All his nuts and bolts were really high resolution. Let me bring this back. So I went through and just made my own nuts here that were a little lower resolution, and put those on there. All the different tubes and stuff here were double, they had the interior faces as well. So again, that's just wasted polygons for what we're doing. It might be okay in like CAD files because they deal with these things differently. But for what I'm doing here, I didn't need this to be an actual tube with the inside faces there, because it's never going to be seen. So I went through and deleted all those, and it really started to cut down on the polygons. So that is pretty much what it's looking like. And there were, there's all kinds of little pieces here and there, especially like on the inside here, where you're gonna have a train sitting on top of here. So even at this level that I have it now, I might find out that I could just get away with deleting some of this sort of central stuff in here, because with the train sitting on top of this, you're probably not gonna see any of that stuff anyway. Things like, for example, this tube here, you can see that it's got some nuts. It's sort of screwed into the frame here. They had the same the nuts in here, where he had them on this side as well. So I just simply deleted them on this side because I didn't need them. Again, there's going to be a train sitting on top of here. You're never going to be able to peek over the side and see what's going on here. Things like that. So I may still delete some stuff later. And I guess I should have probably worked a little bit more efficiently and sort of figured this out ahead of time, so I didn't have to sit there and either model it or convert some of the parts that came with the model. So 300,000 polygons, and there's going to be 2 of these, so it'll be about 600,000 in the wheels alone. The train itself, like I said before, right now is sitting at about 300,000. So for the train and the wheels, well, I'm going to be looking at somewhere around the 900,000 polygon range, which is honestly not too bad. I have not done the driver compartment, so that's going to add, a few thousand, maybe another 100,000 or so. We'll see what that ends up being. So I mean, it's a high resolution, sort of high poly train model. I might have to do some work underneath the train as well, just so that it connects better with the wheels. And if we go here, you can see that outside of the wheels, there's also like the little coupling mechanisms here in the front and the back. You have all this detail underneath here. Now a lot of this is just boxes. I'm not sure what these are, if this is storage or what it is. But there's something here. It almost looks like an engine. I'm not sure what that is. I'm gonna have to look all this stuff up. So there's little things like that I can put in underneath the train just for that detail again, to really push the realism of this train here. Okay, but at the same time, I don't want to spend too much more time on this model. Again, it's most of the stuff with this train is going to be happening on the inside, and at some point the character will get out of the train and sort of walk around it. So we want, the wheels being there is going to be good. We want to have some visual detail in there. But we don't want to. I don't want to go too crazy on it. I don't want to spend 3 months modeling a train that's only a small part of the film. So we'll do that. So now I'm going to export these wheels. I have a group here. I'm going to export this, but what I want to do first is go in my hypershade here. First off, I'm going to make sure that everything in this group, so I'm just going to select it all. I'm going to put Lambert 1 on it, so I'm going to assign that. Now the reason I do that is so that when I import it into the other scene, it doesn't bring in a new shader, because Lambert 1 is Lambert 1 for it's the default shader, so it won't make a duplicate of that. Then I'm just going to go ahead and go to edit, delete unused nodes, just to get rid of stuff that I'm not using here. So I'm going to select this group and I'm going to export it. I'm not going to import this file into the other one because it's got all this other stuff. And in my experience, when you spend a long time in a file modeling and deleting nodes and adding nodes and so on and so forth, there can be some stuff in the background that you can't see that might sort of clog your file. So I find that for situations like this, what you want to do is export the thing that you've modeled, and making sure to use, you want to make sure that you do export selection, not an export all, because if you do an export all, chances are if there's any sort of lost nodes in the file, they might go to. So I'm going to export selection. Oh, you know what, before I do that, I'm just going to select everything. I'm going to freeze transformations. I'm going to delete history, just to clean everything up, right? And so there's no, numbers in any of the channels, and there's no history for all the different things that I did, like extrusions or whatever. Just delete history on everything, and now I can export selection. I'm going to go my subway car folder here and my ASCII, and I don't know, retopo wheels. So for retopologized wheels, export that selection, hit continue, and there we go. So I'm just going to save this scene as it is here. Then I'm going to go into my last subway car, which was 29. So let's go there. It's going to take a little bit to load because I think I might have left the original high resolution wheels in there. So the first thing I'm going to do there is delete those, just to get them out of there. So let's see, did I do that? Yep, those old wheels are still in there. So there we go, CAD wheels. I'm going, you can see just how slow it makes the system here. Again, 1.53 million polygons. So I'm just going to delete that. And then these are the old wheels that I started. And of course, I don't need those. So let's see, where is... Delete that group, this group. And I should have grouped all these before, but that's okay. Just delete all these parts right here because we don't need them anymore. All right, and because I had originally placed the high resolution wheel, the CAD wheels in the correct position, when I exported them out to that new file to model over the top of them, everything should be in the same position. So I'm going to go ahead and import that retopo wheels file, hit continue, and there we go. Okay, so these are the wheels, and I have a couple groups in here which I probably don't need, so I'm just gonna pull everything out of these groups. Hopefully that doesn't break anything. Okay, matter of fact, I think I will. Yeah, I'm just gonna unparent them for right now, and then we get some other groups in here. So this is stuff I should have taken care of in the other file, but that's okay. I'm gonna unparent those as well. because I just want plain geometry. I don't want groups inside of here. Just delete all those empty transform nodes. Okay, so these guys here, where's that? Oh, that's just a nut there. So where are we here? Whoa. Okay. I'm just gonna take these. So what is that? Okay. 1, 2, 3. I'm just gonna combine these. So I did a lot of combining because there were, you know, hundreds, if not a couple thousand of different parts. So I combine them where I can. And then I'm just gonna take all this and then put it in this new wheels group. And there we go. Now what you'll notice, of course, is that when you import, it creates a namespace that is the name of the files, of the file that it came into. I'm sorry, the file that it came from. So what I'm going to do here is just get rid of that namespace, because namespaces kind of bug me. Windows General Editors, and let's go to namespace editor. There's the namespace, and all a namespace is just a way for Maya to make sure that things have unique names, because if you've got, you know, cylinder 1 in one file, then you import another file into it that also has a piece of geometry called cylinder 1, you're going to have a clash in the names there. So if it puts a namespace on it, then you can refer to each one separately because it comes with a namespace. Because I'm not worried about that, and you'll see some of these names are really weird. That's just how they came in. It's not a big deal. I really don't care. So I'm just going to select the namespace here, hit delete. I'm going to merge with root, which means it's just going to use the root namespace. It's going to transfer all the objects in that other namespace down to the root namespace, and you'll see that now my group here has no namespace on it. Okay, so close that. Now, new wheels here. I'm going to call this front wheels. I'm just going to rename it to front. Then I'm going to duplicate it. Now I may end up deleting this group at some point. If I do have to UV stuff over here, then I'm going to delete this and then reduplicate it. But in order to just be able to see what things are looking like right now, I'm going to duplicate it. And let's go in a side view here. And we're going to take these and we're just going to use the blueprint. So you'll see my wheels a little bit bigger than the ones depicted in the picture. It's no big deal. And they're a little wider apart, so no big deal. And put them there just like that. So if we look at it now it's really starting to look pretty good. Now, of course, like I said before, there's all those details underneath here, which I'm going to go ahead and look up some reference on that and try to model that stuff. But I really like how this is looking. It's really starting to look pretty good. And of course the interior is done. Still some touch-ups to do in there. And then of course the driver compartment. Now the other thing that I'm going to be doing is, like I said before, this whole thing is going to be crashed into a wall. And just depending, I had always planned to have a second train car, maybe even a third. And depending on just how many polygons we have when this train is all said and done, and how heavy it is, if it's like 2-3 million polygons up, we'll see if I'll put a second one on there. I really want to do that though. But again, it's really not important to the story, so I'm not gonna go out of my way to do it if there's no real need for it. So we'll see. So yeah, this is where we are right now. Let's see, what's our total faces here? 890,355. So that's not bad for a sort of high resolution asset. And like I said, it's not done yet, so we'll probably break that million by the time it's all said and done. but honestly, that's not bad at all. My computer is kind of old. I'm still running on a GeForce 570, so if I had a 1080 in here, this would be no problem at all. I could, go into the multiple millions of polygons and still have pretty decent performance. So I'm kind of, limited by what I have, but it is what it is. The computer works fine. It's just when I start to get up into really high poly counts, it starts to really show its age a little bit. So, I'm not too worried about it. We'll make it work. And then also bearing in mind that the rest of the set as well, because this is going to be an underground sort of subway tunnel system. It's going to have, crashed through a sort of brick wall, so there's going to be all that debris and all this stuff in there. And I may even I have real flow on here. I may even do some water simulations, just implying that water has sort of leaked into the tunnels and things like that. So polygon counts may really go through the roof at some point. We'll see what we can do. I do have access to other computers that I can do my renders on and simulations on and things like that. So we will see how that goes. Yeah, I think that about covers everything I needed to say. I do, like I said before, I do have to figure something here for the underside of the train, because right now this is the bottom side of the floor of the train, so I need to do something there. I was looking at some images, and there's kind of like cross beams, and then there's also, where are those? If we look at this guy, this little, it almost looks like an I-beam running the length of the train, and then you have the cross beams going across. So we'll figure something out. This will make it look pretty cool, get some of that detail down in there, and yeah, then we'll go from there. All right, so if you enjoy these videos, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Hope you guys are learning something here. This is quite a process to do by yourself, but it is doable. So if you have a project you want to start, go ahead, man. Get it started. And be honest with yourself about what you can accomplish. If it's going to take you 5 years to do the project, then it's probably too big a project. 3D, unfortunately, is not really well suited for working by yourself, especially if you're doing some more of the high resolution, realistic stuff. It can get a little time consuming, as you can see, but myself, I'm not a big fan of the cartoony stuff. I did that for 10 years basically, and I'm kind of sick of it, and I've always sort of been partial to the Blur Studios and Blizzard Studios. Some of the more realistic looking stuff that they do appeals to me more than like Pixar type stuff, Disney type stuff. But that's just me. But that also means that it takes a lot longer to get the stuff done. All right, so if you do like the video, please subscribe, hit that like button, and the next video I will be continuing, just fleshing out the bottom here and doing all the other parts, and I will be back again to talk to you guys when I reach one of the milestones again. All right, thanks.